Big shout out to Betway, the sports betting app that backs you to trust your hockey instincts. Are you an NHL expert? Do you think you know who's going to win games with the Ottawa Senators, the Toronto Maple Leafs, with the Canadiens and the Jets? Do you think you know your stuff with the Flames, the Canucks, and even the Oilers? If that sounds like you better check out the You Lead, You Win offer from Betway. Betway will pay you out as a winner if a team holds a 2-0 lead in any match involving a Canadian team with a $20 max stake. So head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. Please play responsibly. I did mention the Vegas Golden Knights, and they seem to be going through a tough time. They're clinging on to the second and final wild card spot in the Western Conference. I mentioned they lost to Buffalo earlier this week, and Jack Eichel said some comments about how the crowd was loud in Buffalo. It took them how many years for them to get to that volume? It took for him to leave to get to that point. I know Adam kind of mentioned mentioned Jack Eichel and that whole saga on the SDP, and that went into a full uproar. We'll stay clear from that, but the Golden Knights are on a 4-game losing streak. Chandler Stevenson, these are some comments he said after their most recent loss. I'm sick of it. Everybody is sick of it. Everybody needs to dig deeper. Grab their nuts and work. Grab their nuts and work. That's what he said. The last few days, a lot of people are trying to tell us to go work. Chandler Stevenson saying this, Kim Kardashian saying everyone needs to get up off their ass and work. A lot of people telling us to work. But it looks as if the Vegas Golden Knights are definitely in need of that pep talk to go work. What do you think of the Vegas Golden Knights kind of falling further into the bottom of the standings? And what can they do ahead of the deadline?
Well, they don't have a whole lot to do in terms of cap room, and obviously a lot of it hinges on what's going on with Mark Stone. We haven't heard a lot about Stone, but if he needs to be activated before the end of the regular season from long-term injured reserve, it would have to take players off the current roster just to make that happen. For the sake of debate, let's just say that he's not going to be back because I have no reason to believe he is before the end of the regular season. Robin Leonard's been out injured. This is a story of injuries, really. This team was incredibly injured to start the year. And found a way through it, gets Jack Eichel back. And now I think they have 8 players out. Max Pacioretty went out in the last week. Robin Leonard was sent home from this road trip. I don't know that this is necessarily a deadline day fix. I think that they're trying to survive, trying to get healthy, trying to squeak in and hope that they're okay when they get there, that enough of these players can return. It feels a little like a star-crossed season for the Golden Knights to me. And by no stretch am I saying they're not going to still save something of it. Sometimes that's how it goes. Teams don't always win the Stanley Cup after having 130 points in a regular season. Usually you got to go through some shit, for lack of a better term. So they're going through some shit right now, as evidenced by that quote from Chandler Stevenson. And it's not a case of, to me anyway, underperformance, or I think that they're in triage mode, and their lineup is not what their lineup could be. But the problem is there's no guarantee the lineup will ever get to be where it should be. That there's no guarantee everyone will be healthy and they can play and do it. So they're definitely in it. If I wonder about the goaltender. I've received no indication at this point that they're going to trade for one, but it would seem that they are one of the teams like Toronto that has high ambitions that might still be in the goalie market. But beyond that, I don't think there's a magic pill here. I think the magic pill is health. And all you really can do for that, of course, is the treatment they're doing, but have a little time pass. And so the group that's on the ice now has to find a way to get some wins to get those players back and give them a chance to save the season, because they're leaking a ton of oil. And I don't think there's very much management can do just because they have a pretty precarious cap situation.
Any general thoughts on how Jack Eichel's fit with the Golden Knights? I know he's had goals in back-to-back games.
Yeah, I think the thought is that he's been good, given the layoff, right? I mean, he didn't play since last March until returning in February. He had almost a full year off, pretty controversial surgery. All things being equal, I don't think anyone should assume that he's at his best, but it would be unfair for anyone to have hoped for that. He's been productive and finding his way. And so, everything I've heard is that they're happy with him, that he's getting comfortable there, that the neck feels good, which is most important for his health and for his ability to continue his career. And this is just me speaking. I think really we have to give him another full offseason after this year and see what he is next year before we're almost judging performance too closely, because, I do think with that length of layoff and the severity of his injury and even just the unique aspect of the procedure he received to fix it, this is all bonus time right now. And this is a chance for him to get his legs under him, but he's not back to probably being a truly dominant player like I think he can still be in the future.
Okay. Before we get to trading Pyle, I have to mention one final tie to Buffalo. I didn't expect us to make as many connections to the Buffalo Sabres as much as we have so far, but we mentioned them in the Heritage Classic game. We mentioned them being the Vegas Golden Knights a couple of days ago. And one of their former players now in Philadelphia, Rasmus Ristolainen, signs a 5-year extension for 5.1 AAV over the next 5 years. That story, I think, kind of broke just as we finished recording our last podcast. So we didn't get a chance to jump in on all of the talk around that extension. But I'd like to know your thoughts on Rasmus being signed for the next 5 years and what the hell's going on in Philadelphia.
Well, they see value in it, right? I mean, like I get that. Like I can only explain what they think. They think that's a good contract. And, they approached this deadline. I think they were willing to listen to trade offers for him. If they couldn't sign him, they got him signed. And the bet is that this is going to be good value for the Flyers. That not only that they have the player, but that, it's still a tradable contract. I don't have a good explanation though. I mean, the Flyers it's been a strange year. I think that they view it as a year where things haven't gone right for them. Like, I don't think they see it as much of it's not that they're pushing it away, but I don't think they see it as a crisis maybe as those on the outside. But at the same time, Chuck Fletcher has said everything's got to be on the table. And so I think it's an interesting deadline for them. They have a sort of few obvious trade candidates. Someone say like Justin Braun, on an expiring contract that I know teams have looked at, manageable cap hit, all those things. But, you wonder, do they consider doing something bigger? Travis Konechny's name has been out there a little bit. And so, yeah, I can't explain exactly what's happening there, why, but other than the fact that they like the player enough that $5 million was comfortable for them. And it's all about managing assets this time of year. I mean, we're seeing it. We're going to see it in Anaheim and San Jose. I mean, if you're not signing these guys, you're trying to trade them, and there can be a fine line between what you sign them for and what you might get back in a trade. And so, that was the dance they were walking, and they decided to sign them, and we'll see if they regret it or not.
Let's see. And by the way, like when I say what the hell's going on in Philadelphia, I don't necessarily mean like, man, it's just that contract that's just a dumpster fire. Everything about that franchise this season has been a dumpster fire. Kind of as a segue into the trading pile here, Claude Giroux obviously is the first name I'm going to mention. He said that this year is the worst year he's endured as a Philadelphia Flyer, and he's planning on meeting with management to discuss his future. It's bad in Philadelphia right now.
It is, but I think some of what you're seeing from Claude there is frustration. Like when he says it's the worst year, I think he feels that way because they've had a ton of injuries too. Like, again, I'm not making excuses for them, but Sean Couturier has been out long term. A lot of their good players missed time this season. And it's not been much fun to lose this much. I mean, they haven't really been in the playoff race, if you know what I mean. Like there wasn't any mystery. Like we've been talking about Claude Giroux being traded at the deadline for 2 months because we knew for 2 months Philadelphia would be in a mode where they're going to be selling a little bit and trying to turn things over. And so, yeah, it's not been a good year. It's been emotional for Claude too. Like some guys make peace with the fact they're going to be traded when they're in his situation. I think the emotional aspect of the fact he's going to play his 1,000th game on Thursday night with that organization. He's been the only place he's known. He's been the captain. I think all things being equal, he wouldn't want to move on, but he's at that stage of his career where he doesn't know how many chances he'll have to chase a cup again. I think that's all contributed to some of the frustration you're hearing. And, I do expect once he plays that 1,000th game that we're going to quickly transition to where he's going to play next and how that's all going to unfold, because I think it'll happen quite quickly.
It's kind of funny that we look at the trade deadline and a lot of people are saying, man, it's quiet. A lot of teams are having struggles with finding deals that could be made because everyone's on LTIR. It seems as if the one, and I'm not even sure if it's right to say it's the one sure thing, but the one move that I think everyone expects to still go down is Claude Giroux being offloaded to another team. We've mentioned Colorado and Florida as possibilities. I mean, it's pretty much down to those two, unless there's some third team that I'm not thinking of that'll just swoop in for Claude. Am I right?
Yeah. Some other teams think St. Louis is in there too. I don't know what degree, because that's not coming from the Blues, but that's sort of other teams talking about the situation. You know, if I had to power rank them, I still think Colorado's a number one destination, number one fit for him. You know, we'll see what happens now. Gabriel Landeskog's, gone in for surgery. What the timeline is for his return. It might even be something if he has to go on long-term injured reserve that makes it a little easier to absorb Giroux's salary. Because I think the Flyers are a little concerned about the idea of a third team having to be in the middle to make the money work. Because if you're acquiring the Claude Giroux and then you got to pay that team something for the retained salary, like you're probably going to be inclined to pay a little bit less for Giroux himself. And so, I think the Flyers are, if they can control it, hoping to do a sort of a 1-for-1 deal or at least a direct deal with a team where you don't have to involve a third-party broker. Florida has interest, but, Giroux controls the process, right? Giroux has the no-move clause, and I'm not yet sure where he's going to want to go. But it seems like some version of Colorado or Florida, with St. Louis being, kind of in the shadows a little bit, is likely what this scenario is. And, we'll see what Giroux decides. It could shift the balance of power, though, a little bit. To add him, like Colorado's already got a tremendously deep forward group. Would be fascinating if that's where he ends up. But, you're right. We've been talking about this for a long time, and I think it'll play out maybe even before Monday. Like I do think once he gets that 1,000th game in the book with the Flyers, they'll start seeing what the options are and move him on.